Welcome, folks. I got caught off guard. I'm listening to my stupid phone. I'm Keenan, CEO of ASG, and your host or co-host of Top to Bottom. Welcome, everybody. And I have my beautiful co-host, Becc Holland. Becc, you're at Dreamforce. What do you think about it this year?
My name's Becc, and
I already said that.
I'm in the middle of Dreamforce. But I'm not at Dreamforce. I'm feeling good because Bono's in my city. Like, Bono is here in San Francisco.
You said that earlier, and you said he's top 10 for you, but I believe you're only 35, which means you were barely born when they were playing. So that would be like me when I was a kid calling like John Lennon top 10. I don't get that. Shouldn't there be someone more contemporary you like?
I loved them. I, true story, went to Joshua Tree National Park because their best album actually came out in the 80s. Is Joshua Tree, and it was based off of a tree, a picture that they put in Joshua Tree National Park in California. And there's this legend that the tree is, pushed over and blah, blah, blah. Point being, I loved their albums, and I went to that park to try and go find the tree.
No way.
There was a hotel that they stayed at with only 4 rooms, tiny little hotel, mom and pop shop, and they had pictures all over. So I love Bono.
Leave it to you to go find the tree.
Oh, yeah. I was like, I got to find this tree.
Leave it to you to find the tree.
I have a question.
Someone's at my door.
Who's Bono?
Yeah, okay, exactly.
Someone kicked me off the podcast. Someone.
Oh, okay. Hey, I'm talking. You gotta hold on. Here, come on in. Hold on.
He's on a call.
You gotta love it when you could answer the door and freaking let someone in without ever having to freaking get out of your desk.
We're on LinkedIn Live, and Keenan's letting someone in.
I know.
He's letting in the Ozarka guy to refill the water bottle.
It's either that I get up and I go downstairs.
This is exactly how our prep calls go. So,
I know. I'm easily distracted.
Bono is the lead singer of U2, man.
And man, if you say who's U2, I have nothing else to say.
Oh, no. I know U2 because I remember back when I was like 6 or 7 on iTunes, U2 had had their album downloaded on every single Apple device, even if you didn't buy it or not.
So I want everyone to go into the chat. If you're a U2 fan, put your favorite U2 song in the chat. I want to see what we've gotten there. Joshua Tree is definitely, from my perspective, the best album. True story. Bono, which is Latin for Bono Vox, which means good voice. That's how he got his name. It's not his real name.
Mm-hmm.
It was his brother, or Larry Mullen Jr., the drummer. It was someone's brother was the bassist in high school. And basically he quit the band because he said it was going nowhere. Whoops.
There's a lot of stories where people quit bands because they were, didn't think they were going somewhere.
Their first EP was called U2-3, and they shortened it to U2, and that's how they got the name. But Bono is short for Bono Vox, which means good voice in Latin.
Well,
U2 history. Let's go.
There you have it. Let's go.
Well, hey, let's move on to our first section, which is
Email Teardown.
All right, perfect. This is the section where we tear down emails that were sent to Becc and Keenan. So let's get right into it. Here's the first email. So this email is to Keenan, and it says, "Hi, Keenan. I noticed some international team members on Sales Growth's People section on LinkedIn. It's exciting to have a team of globally distributed, talented people responsible for your company's success. However, it also shakes up the payroll process you guys probably had down to a science. Since a smooth and flawless payroll process is crucial for a business to run successfully, here are 4 payroll best practices for simple and reliable international payments. Blank, this company makes it simple and easy for companies to pay their remote international teams so that you can have the same experience as your domestic payroll. Let me know if I may be of any help. Best, blank."
Look, this was an interesting one because we're actually hiring a couple of international people. So he actually had someone that might have been able to use this service. The problem is he didn't give me anything. Like when he said you could mess with your payroll, right? The perfect thing you have now. He didn't tell me how. This is a perfect example of where education can be your best friend in an email. So rather than going on his long, circuitous, placating bullshit, he could have said, hey, listen, I recognize that you have some international employees, which he got wrong. We don't have any right now, but we're about to hire some. So we kind of got lucky. He pulled it off LinkedIn and it wasn't accurate, but still. And he said, what we've learned when people are hiring international, they are unaware or struggle with the following: money exchange rates, the appropriate classification, 1099 versus W-2, taxes in the tax requirements in those countries, et cetera. I don't even know them all. And so if you're currently working with international employees or looking to add in international employees, these things can be gotchas. Would love 15 minutes or 10 minutes to talk to you about how you're handling these to make sure you're compliant, blah, blah. Great opportunity to educate and make me realize maybe I'm fucking this up and I should talk to this guy. But he didn't do that. Didn't do that. Just said, hey, maybe it's going to mess up your system, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
Becc, what do you think about this? Let me scroll down to here.
Yeah, so I have a couple corrections, kind of like tactical corrections, but I want to echo what Keenan said. Like he said in there, it's crucial to, but he didn't say why.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Telling something that something's crucial, it's like, let your prospect decide if that's crucial, and you should present a data point or ask a question that makes them realize how crucial it is. But my tactical corrections would be, number one, like this gave off the impression that this person had researched, and they said, like, you have international team members. And like, I did a quick search on sales growth and noticed that like, there's no way you could have picked that up based on the employees that you have. You don't have international team members yet. So again, this is kind of like last week of like saying that you research when you didn't really research, because if you did, it would take you 2 seconds to realize that wasn't true. The other two, well, the second one is sales growth is spelled wrong. So I've seen a number of different statistics that upwards of 83 to 85% of emails, cold emails, include a format error, some kind of spelling mistake, hiccup, format error. And the reason it's a format error is people are sending out 3,000 templates at once. So that would be my second correction, is that's not the name of your company. And then the third one is right near the end, this person basically says, like, let me know, if you want to take a look. And so there's a couple things wrong in there. First of all, you're commanding Keenan to do something, which from the ego state perspective is going to get him inherently to flip into child adaptive ego state and want to rebel against whatever you tell him to do or not to do. But the second piece is the peak end rule basically says that the most potent portion of any conversation or email is going to be the last sentence. So in the last sentence, you're basically kissing him off, being like, call me, beat me, if you want to buy my stuff. So those would be my 3 corrections from a high level.
All right, perfect. Let's get on to the next email.
Got 20 seconds.
Do we really want to go to the next email?
We want to go to the next. Who wants to get buzzed? It's not going to be me. I'm not doing it. I was born at night, but not last night, men.
Okay, well, I was trying to bait you into a little disruption, but to that end,
we'll do the second one now.
All right, perfect. Well, hey, let's go on to our next section, which is
Sales Mythology.
This is the section where we just demystify common myths in the sales industry. So the very first myth that we'd like to go on today is pitching is selling. Becc, would you like to go first on this one?
Keenan, you want to go first or me?
I'll take either one, Becc.
Okay. Well, I'll lead on this one then. So I looked up the basically the origin story of pitch. It comes from four
Of course
things.
you did, Becc. Of course you did. Of course.
It comes from 4 things, and it's really jarring. The first meeting was people would pitch, set up their tent in a location, that was advantageous. 20 years later, it got the meaning of basically birds when they're on wires and they're going to hunt their prey. They call it pitching. So basically, these birds will dart at their prey to kill their prey. 20 years later, I think it was 30 years later, basically, it morphed into, there were sellers, old school sellers, that would basically have, imagine a watch that was super low quality. And they would go up to random people and say, hey, these super two rich kings basically made a bet with us that we couldn't convince you to buy this super high net watch at a low price because you won't believe us that it's high quality, to manipulate people into buying it. And then 20 years later, basically from baseball, it meant to throw something at someone. So the origins of pitching is to set up a location, kill your prey, manipulate them, and lie to them to get them to buy, and to throw that at them. That's the origin. Keenan, take it from here.
You didn't answer the question. You never answered the question. You did a great job, sharing your brilliant knowledge, but what's the question?
The origin story says it all to me. That a pitch is basically me trying to talk well in a manipulative and deceitful way to get someone to buy my product. And I think that needs to shift to specifically on a cold call. I need to know information about who this person is and what are the problems that they know about and problems that they don't know about and what's causing those and the impacts that they do know about and don't know about, to diagnose, to help them. So pitching, just from a high level, it's why salespeople have gotten the name that we have gotten today.
No, Beck's 100%. There's no room for pitching in the world of sales. None whatsoever. We've been doing it too long. And I haven't researched the origins of why we started this concept of pitching and not helping. I feel it's because the culture has been all about driving dollars. And so people just want to run out. Plus, it's easier. I know what I know, so let me tell you what I know. Look, the bottom line is, I'll say it again, I'll say it 1,000 times. Proper selling is really about helping. Your job is to help. And so help somebody achieve something. Well, if you don't understand what they're trying to achieve, one, if you don't understand why they can't achieve it, two, and you don't understand what's causing or creating the environment that they can't achieve it, three, then you can't offer any help. You can only just talk. I have a saying, telling is not selling. Mm-hmm. So if you're pitching, you basically don't understand what the problem is. You don't understand what they're trying to achieve. And even worse, you don't even understand the root causes. And without those, you bring zero value. You leave it to the buyer to understand. So there's absolutely no room whatsoever for pitching in sales.
I think also, to your point, I hear a lot of people, and I myself, in my career, have gotten nervous before a pitch. And that's because there's a famous sales methodology out there that basically a pitch or a presentation, if you will, was described as a Broadway play performed by a psychiatrist. And that's why people are nervous, is because it's a performance.
Yep.
It has nothing to do with the audience and what they're actually running into. Nope. So people are nervous because they're having to perform as opposed to diagnose, And so I think that would alleviate people, even from whenever they're in the room from the nerves perspective, to know hey, I am markered on how effectively do I solve this person's problem by highlighting the stuff that's hurting them.
Okay, on to the next mythology, or a sales myth, is that the best AEs should be promoted to AE sales managers. Keenan, would you like to take it first?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. When I was younger, back in the day, that was a very prominent thing.
When milk was a nickel.
When milk was a nickel, and U2 was a new band. Okay, back when U2 was a new band just coming out, and I was a benefactor of that. I sold my ass off and quickly moved up the ranks, right? And I worked for a great company that taught me about leadership, etc. But the truth of the matter is, what most people don't understand is management is about leadership, first and foremost. And so if you think that your best salesperson is going to be your best manager or best leader, you had better have some observations that shows they're actually a leader, whether an informal leader within the organization, whether they've demonstrated leadership skills somewhere else. Because if you think you're going to promote that person and then expect them to actually be what do we call them here? A glorified sales rep, because I see so many organizations where it's a glorified sales rep. They basically have, let's say they have 8 people reporting to them, and they go to all the closing calls, and they interrupt the salesperson, and they try to close it, and they're actually doing the selling.
Mm-hmm.
There's no leadership, there's no coaching, there's no personal career development. None of that's going on. So you got to understand the role is leadership, not salesmanship. And I'll leave it on. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
All right, perfect. What do you think, Becc?
Yeah, well, I think here's the thing, and I get why people do it, especially when you've got a top performer and the top performer thinks that to make them happy and to progress their own career, that they should be a leader. But the problem with that is they're 2 entirely different skill sets. Being able to sell and being able to focus on others and get them to be able to sell and learn and coach them they're not necessarily mutually exclusive, but they're completely different, so I see a lot of, it's kind of like, I'm from Texas, obviously. So this actually tracks, but it's kind of like all bourbons are whiskeys, but all whiskeys aren't bourbons. So on the other hand, I do believe not all great reps are going to make great managers. But but all managers should have been a great rep.
I'll go with good rep. I'll go with good rep. You don't have to be great.
You don't have to be great, but you have to be, from my perspective, really good. The thing that you churn, if the person tactically isn't really good, I have a hard time believing that they know how to diagnose what is wrong with the sales conversation that their reps are doing and what to do instead. So I do think that you need to have an inherently at least solid foundation on where to lead them to.
Yes.
To be able to be an effective coach. So I do think the myth, is, and even the AEs themselves, once they get into the management position, I was asked to be a leader, and my first inherent reaction, so I said, I appreciate the compliment. I'm not looking for more. But I said, here's the thing. I think I'm your classic Eagle top performer that you that will never update their CRM, that you just kind of let go. I think I'm too selfish to be a leader. So why do you think that I could be an effective leader? Because I knew it would take a pivot on focusing on other people.
No, we're not going to do another myth. We're going to finish this one out. We're going to do it properly, right? So I think sports is a good analogy. John Wooden, he was the head coach of UCLA basketball, and they were undefeated, and they won I'm going to butcher this, 8 out of 9 or 10 championships in a row throughout the 70s and early 80s. Mm-hmm. And the man was this little old man who was maybe 5'6". He couldn't play. I mean, maybe he took a shot, but he wasn't a great basketball player, but he understood the game.
Yeah.
He understood the game, and he knew how to motivate and lead people. So if you hire someone to be a sales manager, I don't care if they could actually execute or not, as long as they could understand the game. Can they understand the game? Do they know how it works? And can they manage and lead and coach people and identify talent? There's one we are not talking about enough at all, identifying talent. And I realize this because I'm not as good as I thought I was. I'm not nearly as good as I thought, and I got to work on that. Identifying talent is absolutely the most critical part, and no one touches on that. Ever.
And I think unlocking talent, to your point, unlocking their talent and being able to do that is going to be a key part to coaching and leading.
I know that we're a little early on that timer, but
he's jumping the gun now, man. He's like, I'm not even going to give you 5 seconds.
It sounded like a good close. Okay, the next segments we shall be doing today is
Take It or Leave It.
This is the segment where I introduce common sales tactics, and Becc and Keenan let us know whether or not they will take it or leave it. So the first take it or leave it is sales networking events. Becc, start us off.
I'm going to take it. I like sales networking events. I miss them during the pandemic. I think that that's the proper outlet to find.
Build brand?
No, that's the proper outlet instead of brand. That's how you can build your network with key leaders. It's not one to many like brand. It's not one to the billions of people on this world. But I think at sales networking events, I'm definitely gonna take it.
Okay. And
I
what
might
about you,
surprise
Keenan?
people with this one. And my inner introvert is coming out. Leave it. The amount of time, look, back in the days, maybe when they were set up all the time and you could literally walk out of your house and fucking throw a stone and walk into one every Friday or Tuesday night, my story would be different. But in today's world, the amount of time it takes is really one near you. You got to get in your car, you got to drive somewhere, get on a plane, blah, blah, blah. No. Now, look, if you're going to a Dreamforce or conference once or twice a year, okay, but that's more than just a networking event, right?
Yeah.
But in the main, I'm leaving it. Too much work, too much effort. Not enough people have the personality to actually maximize them. I fucking hate them. Like going up and trying to introduce someone new. No, fucking leave it. Ugh, nope.
All right. Well, Keenan, now let's talk about managing to activity. Take it or leave it.
Woo! Okay, I'm gonna pull a Becc on this one. I think she calls it a cleave it or some shit like that.
Teave
A teave it. Yeah, I'm gonna call it a teave it, right? Or tave it. Take it, leave it, teave it. I don't know. I'm going that route. Here's why. Here at ASG, and if you ever want to see something, I talk about the freedom box, right? So when someone comes to work for me, I create a huge freedom box. Do whatever the fuck you want. Here's the goal. You got to do this. But how you do it and the activity you choose to employ, have at it, because I want to maximize the uniqueness, brain power, creativity of every individual person. I don't want to tell them how to do their job. However, if they aren't making the number, I shrink the freedom box. So I say you can't do this and you can't do that. But I don't really manage the activity. If I get to the point where the box is so small that I have to manage your activity, how many calls, did you do this, did you do that, how are you doing this, did you do it, I don't want the employee anymore. Because if I have to manage your activity, then I'm not doing my job. So I want no part of it. So no, leave it. Do not manage activity.
You're not a teave it. You're a leave it.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
All right, what do you think, Becc? Take it or leave it?
I'm a take it, a strong take it, which you would not get.
I don't ever work for you, man. Woo, Jesus.
Because heaven forbid you produce. You're really
okay. Keep going because we're gonna have a good. Keep going.
The reason that I'm a take it is doing the habits. I'm gonna take it if they aren't past quota. If they're past quota, do whatever you're doing. Now, when they're not past quota for a month, which is the majority of reps, statistically speaking, 76% on the SDR side and 86% on the AE side, then I'm a strong take it. And the reason is it doesn't mean that if I'm managing activity, that I'm not managing quality. So I try to manage to both of if I'm in a control to some degree, or if I'm going to help influence an output, then I need to help influence the inputs. And the reality is that, especially specifically for SDRs, they're coming in from college, or they're, pretty young in their careers, typically speaking. And like, they don't know all the behaviors that will make them successful. And so then it comes down to, well, how much quote unquote time do I have? The reality is prospecting is really hard. So I'm going to push less and less time towards it. So I try to enable them with putting a standard in place of saying like, hey, so you have X amount of calls and X amount of emails. And I do a very doable one, based on personalized emails, and they can supplant them, more calls or more emails equal more calls or more emails on the other end.
But where do you get ownership? Because if it doesn't work, I'm blaming you.
Right.
I don't want to do it this way.
Right.
I want to do it this way. And you made me do it this way and it didn't work. So it's your fault now, Becc. Where's the ownership in the team?
So this is for the reps, again, that don't hit quota on their own. So I'm enabling them by essentially, a lot of people will go into like a physical trainer, for instance, and just I didn't know we
Sorry
were
to
up on
interrupt that.
time.
I know. You got to pay attention to that time.
Man,
This was a good one. Good. That was good stuff, Becc. That was good
Take
stuff.
it.
And it's
I'm
funny, you
taking
don't realize that you backed yourself. Go back and listen to this. You backed yourself into the Freedom Box.
You can't. No. You can't do this after time because I did it. I don't have the time.
I can talk to
Well, let's
you.
admit,
You can
I don't
talk
have
to
the
me.
time.
You can talk to me. You just can't push your thing.
I
Anyways,
think
all
we
right.
need to add a section called bar fight. It's just topics that we.
You can be a ranter. You can go at rant. I fucking hate how.
No, because it's supposed to be a rant to everyone else, not at each other.
Well, that is entertaining.
We just need to arm wrestle on LinkedIn Live.
Oh,
I might lose.
I'm all for it. Oh, anyways, on to the next section.
The inbox.
Hi, this is the section where Becc and Keenan answer questions from our audience. And to that end, I have our trusty little mailbox.
Here's the mailbox. Here's
Mail
Mr.
time.
Rogers.
Mail time. Yes, but let me dig in.
That mailbox feels violated.
The mailbox is being branded.
Yeah, let me dig in. Let me just get right in there.
It's okay. It's okay. Likes it. Okay, this one is from Liliana Ortega from San Antonio, Texas.
Hello, Liliana.
Oh.
I am in charge of sending out email campaigns for a real estate company, but I find my open rates are garbage, sub 5%, and the same with my click-through rates, sub 1%. How can I possibly improve the performance of my emails?
Keenan, you start.
I don't know, right? Like this is how I stumbled across gap selling, and this is how my natural mind works. Anybody listening, pay attention. Right now, I'm like, I don't know, because I don't know what you're doing. Like I don't know your current state. I don't know how you're doing it now to know how to improve. She could be doing everything right that I would teach, and I'd be like, I don't know. It could be your industry. It could be the people you rate. I don't know. So with that as a backdrop, I only can simply say, to give Becc some time here, is I have to assume that you're not really clear on what you're trying to get them to do. And then you're not really clear on the messaging on why. Watch what I do here. It's valuable. At the end of the day, there has to be an offer to value ratio. What am I offering? What's the value for that offer? Or offer to ask. Offer to ask. What am I asking you to do, and what's the value of that offer? And if the offer is not more than what I'm asking, you're not going to get them to respond. I'll leave it at that.
What about you, Becc? What do you say to this?
Yeah, so I'll start with the email open rate. So industry average is going to be around 15 to 20% from an open rate perspective. So if you're getting 5%, I would guess that you're hitting spam words in your subject line. So you're going to spam box like immediately. So people aren't even seeing it. So email deliverability is going to scrub out about 35% of emails. So I would guess if it's 5%, that's inorganically low. And I'm going to guess that you have some inherent level of drive if you're writing in a question like this. So I would guess, if it were me, what I would look back through is just Google spam words. Problems is one, solutions is one, free is one, any kind of hashtag, any more exclamation points, and it's going to send you to spam inorganically. So that should get you back to 15 or 20% and scrub those words out. Now, the 15 to 20% open rate is still way too low, in my opinion. So I would guess, or usually the templates that I send out are going to be around a 65 to 85% open rate. So I would make a list. Once you get back to the 15 or 20, just make a list of when you delete emails on a Monday morning. How did you know that they were a sales email or a marketing email without opening it? That should give you a short list of all the normal words that people say, and you got to stay away from those. So try to use emotional, different trigger words that most people don't say, but that still tie into the content to raise your open rate from a 15 or 20 to a 50 or 60. So in Equip, that would be the problem with the open rate. So I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to go through, kill the whole time with click-through rates and response rates. But that's likely your problem.
All right, on to our next question. Oh, this one's a long one. Okay, this one's from John Malkova from New York. Our sales process is structured so that once an AE has closed the deal with a company, he or she transfers it over to a customer support manager to maintain the relationship post-sale. These client support managers are more adept at helping the buyer through the implementation phase. However, we're having trouble with maintaining the strong relationships built by the AEs during the sales process. Any tips on how to solve this issue?
Why do you care about the relationship with the AE during the process? That's my first question. Are you trying to tell me it's the AE's job to sell to them once come in, they got to sell them or upsell them or add additional products? Okay, then I would still ask, again, what's the problem? I don't understand why just because someone is helping implement, it's hard to maintain the relationship. So I'm not going to answer that because of time, and I don't know how to answer it based on what he provided.
Any closing thoughts, Becc, or you want to wait till the buzzer?
Well, give it time. I'll answer it next week.
Okay. Smart decision, Becc.
in my old age, trying to make more wise decisions.
Okay, we're on to our next section, which is
the challenge.
This is the segment where Becc and Keenan break down a challenging subject within the sales industry. Today's challenge is how to deal with salespeople who are behind on their numbers. Becc, would you like to start us off?
Keenan.
Yes, you deflected to me twice now, so have at it.
Okay. So my first tip on people who are behind on their sales, I'm going to do two and then I'm going to transfer. My first tip would be I need to diagnose at this point as a coach why they're behind on their number. So this is going to come down to a lot of different things. Usually where I see coaches pivoting to is it's a motivation issue. And I'm like, it's usually a motivation issue if they're not like, it's not a motivation issue. It's usually something else. It's usually going to be a tactical. They're not sending enough, messages. They're not sending it at the right time. They're not sending it to the right people. Maybe they're spending too much time on list building and researching, etc. But if I'm trying to manage someone back to the number, the first thing that I need to identify is not only the tactical things that they're saying wrong, like are they saying things incorrectly on the phone or is it a bad, are they asking questions in an inappropriate manner, but are they making the amount of dials? Are they sending the right amount of emails at the right time to the right people, that's going to give them the likelihood of hitting quota. So I'd say the first thing that I would do is tactically diagnose where they're going wrong. I'm going to start with that tip and kick it off to Keenan.
Well, I'm going to agree with you there. You got to know why.
Yeah.
Right. So just because someone's behind quota doesn't necessarily mean that it's a problem. So, first thing I want to see is if they've been behind quota for more than a couple of months. Someone's behind 1 month. Okay. Are they trending up? They trending down? So first and foremost, I want to know how long you've been behind quota. And then I want to understand why. What are you doing? So that's where my freedom box comes in, right? So I have the freedom box. You do whatever you want. But once you start falling behind your goals or expected outcomes, expected results, I start digging in. Let's start talking. What are you doing? What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Someone being behind quota should never be a surprise on why. It should never be a surprise. If you would it's interesting how this is all coming full circle. If you're doing your job as a manager slash leader, you have been paying attention, especially in sales, and more than any other thing that I know of, especially in sales, you should have had so many observable moments over the last 1, 3, 5, 7 months in what they're doing, how they're doing it, the things they're focused on, what they're prioritizing, their ability to take coaching, their ability not to take coaching, their ability to apply the coaching. All of that should be clear so that when you get to a place that, quote unquote, they're behind quota, because my interpretation of this, man, is they're behind quota and it's not acceptable anymore. Because people are behind quota all the time, right? It's just how it works, right? We're getting to the point that it's not acceptable. Now we're concerned. You shouldn't be surprised by now. Like if you properly led and you properly managed, when you get there, you both should realize this may not be the job. It should not be a reactive result. It's like, oh, they're not there. What do we do now? It should have been you all got there together like, wow, he's still or she's still not at quota. We've been working together and doing these things and addressing these things. This might not be a good fit. You know, I agree with Becc, but we have this habit of becoming reactive to people when it comes to their jobs. And we need to be more proactive with people in their jobs so they're not surprised that they're not performing.
Yeah, I think it shouldn't be a surprise when they don't perform. And it also shouldn't be a surprise of why they're not performing. Like, you should know that as a coach ahead of time. And most of that is going to come down to you diagnosing things that they don't necessarily know. You know, maybe they're sending emails at 10 a.m. and that's on a Monday morning, and that's a classic non-hit time. That it's like, okay, I need to transition them to Thursday. The second thing that I would do, and I'm gonna equip this up, and this is something that I would do, that I've done in the past that have driven the most results for me, is I spent 15 minutes at the beginning of every single day, essentially looking through the last 50 emails that they sent. So it's like, instead of just changing my one-on-ones to you bring me an email and we tear this one down, maybe there's errors that are less egregious than the ones that they made in the email that they sent to you to coach, but they're making that mistake often. And so it actually makes the error net bigger than the one that they brought you in the email. So I would spend 15 minutes at the beginning of every single day, and I would, if it were me, and again, Keenan is probably gonna have a different perspective here, but I disciplined them in the regards of their input standards of like, hey, you need to be doing the behaviors from either an activity perspective or a multi-threading perspective or a follow-up perspective. You know, they're all standards here. And again, this comes in when they're not hitting quota. They want to know why, you know. But the last thing that I would do is there's certain things that are going to come in the future for them, even when they are hitting quota, that I tried to give them a heads up on. I'll give you an example and then I'm going to be quiet. It was a typical trait of mine as a seller. If I nailed out, like, let's say 90% of my bag in the first week of the quarter, that I would sandbag, you know, for the next 2 months, because I'm like, I got this. And by the end of the quarter, it was too late to do something about it. And I was still at 85% of quota. And so I'd actually miss quota. So often when reps are ahead of their quota from a progression perspective early on in the month or early on in the quarter, I would coach them of like, hey, I know that you just had a couple of wins, but let me tell you how this is going to pan out. If you keep feeling good and you stop laying on the gas on the traits, behaviors, and things that are helping you get there, like essentially you're going to end up, you know, at the end of this quarter actually missing quota. So I try to get ahead of some of those things that would happen to a typical seller to help take care of them, you know, kind of down the road.
I think the key piece here is the observable moments.
Yeah.
You have to find as many opportunities to observe the person in the job, right? And you have to allow them to actually execute the job. And I think what happens is far too often we try to do it for them or get in the way or tell them how to do it. You can't. And I think the other thing we have to understand too is this idea of not making the number, right? So I break it down, and we do this here at ASG. Think about a 4-quadrant matrix, okay? Behaviors on the y-axis, results on the x-axis, right? And so if someone is not demonstrating the results or not demonstrating the behaviors, then they're out. Bottom left box, they're out. Top right box, demonstrating the results and the behaviors, they're all stars, keep them to the best. But most people usually end up in one of the two boxes. Demonstrating the results but not demonstrating the behaviors, I give you about 60 days and you're the fuck out. I don't care if you're getting results. That's toxic. Toxic people that demonstrate the behaviors but not demonstrate the results but not the behaviors. And then finally, it's demonstrating the behaviors but not the results. You have to ask yourself after a while, is the person in the wrong job?
The right person. Right. Something, sorry to cut you off. Something that y'all do that's really impressive to me, or that I learned a lot from. I remember you covering this at one point, or not to be a stalker, but you said at one point that basically you want to observe people first, tell them what they're doing, tell them what they should do instead.
Observe, Describe.
Prescribe.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I thought that was brilliant. And I'll tell you why. I had a salsa coach, for months and months. And I essentially, for a long time, he would just tell me what to do instead. And it wasn't until we started practicing in my house, we moved my couch, and there's a mirror here, and he would stop me when I was going through turns and my elbows were too loose, and he would be like, stop right here. You see how look in the mirror, you see how your elbow is out? And it was jarring to me. I had no idea that my elbows were out that far. So I think that's a key piece to getting people, either to quota or in coaching in general, is stopping them in the moment and being like, look in the mirror. Do you see how, your back's not straight, or when you dip back that you're doing X, Y, and Z, so that they know themselves, okay, I am doing this trait. And that's what this coach is talking about. Now I understand what I need to do instead because, whatever it was, is off that I was doing. I thought that was brilliant.
I think I can't take full credit. I combined two things I learned and then adopted it to ASG, to our own thing, but I digress. I think what really I want people to get out of this here is the question was set in a way what to do with someone who's not at quota or not making the number. All right. That's what I get for being in yellow. I thought I said 30 seconds, not 3 seconds. So anyways, yes.
Hey, well,
I want to know
I'm
what
okay
it was.
with that. That's the first time I've gotten buzzed. That's all right. I can live with it.
It's the first time. Welcome
Either
to the
way.
bottom. Well, this is the bottom of top to bottom.
This is the bottom of top to bottom.
This is the bottom of top to
Welcome
bottom.
to the bottom, Keenan. I've been here for a while.
Well, hey, we went through all these different segments, and I want to close this out with closing thoughts with our rant. So, Keenan, let us know your rant for today.
Really quickly, because this has been on my top of mind. So I want to make sure I didn't do this last week. Does anybody remember my rant from last week?
Yes. You were talking about finding out what you love, and doing everything you can to become the best at it. Because if not, you're just getting a paycheck, and that's just sad.
All right. Yeah. So, Becc, you got to go because my rant today is on the heels of I don't think I want to do the same one. I need a second.
Okay.
You need a second.
Becc, what is your rant for today?
I have a big rant, and I might not scream about it, but it's very, very important to me. There's been times in my life where I thought
you want to cry?
No. Cry out of rage, maybe.
Okay.
But there are times in my life where I thought it was other people's responsibility to make me successful. And I remember I was probably 14 years old, and I used to play soccer very aggressively growing up. And I was near the goal in a practice exercise, and I took a shot and I missed. And I started complaining, basically under my breath, saying why it was someone else's fault. And my dad was behind the goal for some reason. He was my coach. And he said, "It's on you, Becc." It's all he said. And that caused a change in me. And I'm very thankful to him for that moment. Because I realized in that moment, and the rest of, there's someone who's mimicking me. There's someone who's my neighbor who's saying, I realized.
Wow.
Loud.
Wow.
So I realized in that moment that my career, me as a player, how successful I am, etc., is up to me. That I need to take the reins in my own hand. And I think that there is a real passion behind discipline. Being disciplined enough to say, these are the traits and the things that I think are going to make me successful. And so I'm going to do those every single day, regardless of how I feel and how hard they are, because that's where that's what's going to get me to my goal. So my only ask is, if you're at the point in your life where you're Becc pre that shot, where you're like, hey, it's someone else's responsibility.
Things aren't going well for me.
To recognize that there is some hand, some piece that you have to do with your success and with your failures and to adjust accordingly.
Keenan, what's your rant for today?
I am going to reinforce Beck's rant, and I'm going to tell a similar story. I played football in high school, fairly good. So the reason that matters is because I would go to my grandfather's house, who lived like 3 blocks down the road, every Sunday after the game. We'd sit and talk about the game. But one particular year, I skipped school on like Monday. I don't know. I got caught, and so I got suspended for the game. So the reason I say I was fairly good is the paper talked about that. We lost the game, and they talked about my absence. So I went down to my grandfather's house that Sunday, and I walked in. He's reading the paper, and I said, "Hey, what's up, Gramps?" He said, "Hey, what's going on?" We talked small talk for a second. He goes, "So what happened?" And at first, I genuinely didn't understand what he was talking about. He goes, "What happened?" I said, "What do you mean, what happened?" And I honestly didn't know. And then he said, "No, really, I want to know what happened." And I started getting hip, so I think I know where he's going. Then he goes, he goes, "So what happened?" I go, "Well, and he goes, "Wait, don't tell me. It was the teacher's fault." I'm like, no. He goes, wait, no. He interrupted me again. He goes, "It was your buddy Carl's fault." I'm like, "No, He goes, "Wait, no. It was your coach's fault." And I said, "No, Grandpa." I said, "Wait, don't tell me. I'll guess, because I know it wasn't your fault." He then goes, "Because I know it wasn't your fault." I will never, ever, ever forget that. And so here's the deal. Beck's too nice. I run my own company. I sell these damn books. I'm online all the time helping people every single day who fucking send me texts and DMs. "Hey, Keenan, can you help me understand this? And I watched this rant and I did this and I did that." I'm like, and after a while, I'm like, "Hey, did you read the book?" He goes, "Oh, no, I didn't read the book." I'm like, "What?
Yeah.
You're fucking reaching out to me to explain all this shit, and you didn't take 5 fucking seconds to buy the book and invest in yourself, and somehow I gotta fucking break down what I spent 8 months writing in the first place?" Or people come to me and they interview for me and they're like, "Hey man, what are you looking for in this job?" I'm like, "You don't know what it takes to," "Well, I didn't do this." Fuck you. Like, fuck you. People do not take responsibility for themselves and expect everybody else to do it. And here's the clincher. Society reinforces that shit.
Yeah, of course.
I get so much shit for being hard on people for simply calling out the absolute obvious fact that you didn't do your shit.
Yeah.
Right? And in closing, Rachel, who works for me, said, "The hardest part of me working with you, Keenan, is your EQ is so high.
Yeah.
You drive us to a place that we can't hide."
Yeah.
We can't hide. You don't accuse us of things we're not doing. You just get right to our own shit, and we have to own it, and it is hard. And people don't like that. Mm-hmm. Enough of people trying to expect other people to do it. Fucking take care of your own fucking self. Mic drop. There you go, Becc.
Sick.
Well, thank you all so much for coming on this podcast, or for hosting this podcast.
Yes, I'm sorry I didn't do my job. I got fired up, man. See that? I am Keenan. Thank you for joining us. You just witnessed Top to Bottom, episode 4. Thank you very much.
And I'm Becc. See you next week.